Fact 6. There are 3 different Black Belt Jones 2 movies. The sequel situation for Black Belt Jones became incredibly confusing because 3 different movies were marketed as follow-ups to the original film, even though they featured Jim Kelly playing characters with completely different names in each one. This marketing mess created a tangled web of supposed sequels that has confused fans and collectors for decades, making it nearly impossible to figure out which films are actually connected to the original story. The first sequel, Hot Potato, was released in 1976 and featured Jim Kelly playing a character named Jones, making it the most legitimate sequel of the bunch. This film was produced by the same team that made Black Belt Jones, including writers Alexandra Rose and Oscar Williams, and it followed Kelly's character on a rescue mission in Thailand to save a diplomat's daughter from jungle kidnappers. Since Kelly's character was still named Jones and the same creative team was involved, Hot Potato functions as a genuine continuation of the Black Belt Jones adventures. However, things got much more complicated with the tattoo connection in 1978, which was deceptively marketed as Black Belt Jones 2 or Black Belt Jones 2, the tattoo connection in various territories. In this film, Jim Kelly actually plays a character named Lucas, not Jones, and the plot has no connection whatsoever to the original movie or its characters. The only reason distributors could get away with calling it a Black Belt Jones sequel was because it starred the same actor doing martial arts, even though it was completely unrelated story-wise. This confusing marketing strategy was purely financial, designed to capitalize on the popularity of the original Black Belt Jones by tricking audiences into thinking they were getting a legitimate sequel. The result was a bizarre franchise where fans never knew if they were watching an actual continuation of the story or just another Jim Kelly martial arts movie with a misleading title slapped on it. Fact 7. The car wash fight scene predicted modern action movies. The climactic battle in Black Belt Jones takes place in a malfunctioning car wash where the fighters battle waist deep in mountains of soap suds, creating a visually spectacular finale that was decades ahead of its time in terms of over-the-top action movie choreography. This sequence features Jim Kelly and Gloria Hendry taking on wave after wave of enemies while completely covered in thick, white foam that transforms the entire fight into something that looks more like a bizarre dream sequence than a traditional martial arts showdown. The car wash setting allowed the filmmakers to create a unique visual experience where combatants would disappear and reappear through the soap suds, with defeated enemies being tossed into the back of garbage trucks by Sydney, while Jones continued fighting new attackers who kept emerging from the foam. The endless supply of soap created an almost cartoon-like environment where the normal rules of physics seemed suspended, and fighters could slip and slide in ways that added both comedy and spectacle to the action. What makes this sequence particularly noteworthy is how it anticipated the kind of elaborate, environment-based final battles that would become standard in action movies decades later. While most 1970s action films ended with straightforward gunfights or hand-to-hand combat in ordinary locations, Black Belt Jones created an entire alternate reality for its climax, using nothing more than soap suds and creative camera work. The scene also demonstrated an early understanding of how unusual settings could enhance fight choreography, with the slippery soap allowing for moves and transitions that would be impossible on normal ground. This approach to using environmental elements as integral parts of action sequences wouldn't become common in mainstream Hollywood until the 1980s and beyond, making the car wash fight a surprisingly innovative piece of action filmmaking that was far ahead of its time. Fact 8. Scatman Crothers wore one of cinema's worst toupees. Scatman Crothers' hairpiece in Black Belt Jones became so notoriously obvious and distracting that film critics specifically called it out in their reviews, with one reviewer describing it as one of the cheesiest toupees in movie history. The beloved character actor, who would later become famous for roles in The Shining and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, played Pop Bird, the kind-hearted owner of the karate dojo that becomes the center of the film's conflict. Throughout the movie, Crothers' toupee appears to have a life of its own, shifting position during fight scenes and sitting at unnatural angles that made it impossible for audiences to focus on his performance. The hairpiece was so poorly fitted and obviously artificial that it became a visual distraction during even the most dramatic moments, including Pop Bird's emotional scenes and his attempts to demonstrate martial arts moves to his students. What made the situation even more amusing was that the film required Crothers to participate in several action sequences where his character had to fight off attackers and show off his karate skills. During these physical scenes, The toupee would move independently of his head movements, creating unintentional comedy as viewers watched both Crothers trying to fight and his hairpiece trying to stay in place. The combination of serious martial arts action with a clearly fake hairpiece created a surreal viewing experience that many fans remember more vividly than the actual plot. The toupee became such a memorable part of the film that it was mentioned in multiple reviews and has been discussed by cult movie fans for decades. Despite Crothers' genuine talent as an actor and his heartfelt performance as the fatherly dojo owner, his hairpiece managed to upstage him throughout the entire movie, turning what should have been a touching character into an unintentional source of visual comedy. Fact 9. The film features trampoline ninjas. One of the most bizarre and memorable sequences in Black Belt Jones involves Black Belt Jones and Sidney infiltrating Don Stefano's winery by using trampolines to bounce over walls and past security systems in what can only be described as the most unconventional stealth mission ever put on film. This sequence occurs when the heroes need to break into the mob boss's compound to gather evidence and rescue their kidnapped friend. But instead of using traditional spy tactics, they decide that bouncing around on trampolines is the best approach. The infiltration scene shows Jones and Sidney setting up trampolines outside the winery's perimeter walls and using them to launch themselves high into the air, somehow managing to clear the security barriers and land inside the compound without triggering any alarms. The trampolines allow them to bounce from location to location within the winery grounds, moving in ways that apparently confuse the security cameras and guards who are presumably not trained to watch for airborne intruders. During this sequence, the heroes also employ a Polaroid instant camera to take pictures that they use to fool the security monitoring system, creating fake images to place over the camera lenses so the guards won't see them bouncing around the property. The combination of trampolines and Polaroid photography creates an infiltration method that defies all logic and common sense, but somehow works within the film's own internal universe. This trampoline infiltration scene has become one of the most talked about moments in Black Belt Jones, because it represents the film's willingness to embrace completely absurd solutions to dramatic problems. The sequence plays out with complete seriousness, as if using trampolines to sneak into a heavily guarded criminal compound is a perfectly reasonable tactical decision that any professional would consider when planning a covert operation. Fact 10. Warner Brothers promoted Jim Kelly as Dragon. Warner Bros. Created a completely fictional nickname for Jim Kelly in their promotional materials for Black Belt Jones, billing him as Jim Dragon Kelly in advertisements and movie posters to capitalize on his previous appearance in Enter the Dragon with Bruce Lee. This marketing strategy was designed to remind audiences of Kelly's connection to the hugely successful martial arts film from the year before, even though Kelly had never actually used the nickname Dragon in real life or in his professional martial arts career. The studio's decision to add this fake middle name was purely a commercial calculation, as Enter the Dragon had been an enormous box office success that earned over $400 million worldwide and made Bruce Lee an international superstar. By associating Kelly's name directly with the word dragon, Warner Bros. Hoped to transfer some of that box office magic to their new blaxploitation martial arts film, essentially borrowing credibility from the earlier movie's success. What makes this marketing trick particularly interesting is that the nickname actually stuck with Kelly throughout the rest of his career, appearing in promotional materials for his subsequent films and becoming part of his official screen persona. Many fans and even some industry professionals began referring to him as Jim Dragon Kelly in interviews and articles, treating the studio-invented nickname as if it were a legitimate part of his martial arts identity. The fake nickname became so embedded in popular culture that it continued to appear in movie databases, reference books, and fan discussions for decades after Black Belt Jones was released. This artificial branding exercise demonstrates how powerful movie studio marketing could be in the 1970s, when a simple addition to an actor's name in advertisements could create a lasting change to their public image and professional identity that would follow them throughout their entire career. Fact 11. The UK cut out 87 seconds of violence. The British Board of Film Classification removed 1 minute and 27 seconds of violence from Black Belt Jones before allowing it to be shown in UK cinemas and released on video, making the British version significantly shorter and choppier than the original American cut. The BBFC censors went through nearly every fight scene in the movie with surgical precision, cutting out specific types of martial arts moves that they considered too violent or dangerous for British audiences to witness. The censors were particularly concerned with two specific types of attacks that appeared repeatedly throughout the film's action sequences. They systematically removed every instance of characters delivering kicks to opponents' groins, apparently viewing these attacks as excessively brutal or potentially encouraging copycat behavior among viewers. The second major target for cuts was neck chops, where fighters would strike opponents in the neck area using the side of their hands, which the censors also deemed too violent for public consumption. This extensive editing created a bizarre viewing experience for British audiences who saw fight scenes that would suddenly jump from one moment to another without showing the actual finishing moves that defeated the villains. The choppy editing made many of the action sequences confusing and difficult to follow, as viewers would see fighters squaring off against each other and then suddenly see the bad guys falling down without any clear indication of what had happened to them. The heavy censorship was particularly ironic given that Black Belt Jones was already a relatively lighthearted action movie that emphasized comedy and spectacular stunts over graphic violence. The film's fight scenes were choreographed more for entertainment value than realistic brutality, yet the British censors treated them as if they were documentary footage of actual street fighting that needed to be sanitized for public safety. Fact 12. A Polaroid picture creates a massive plot hole. During the winery infiltration sequence, Black Belt Jones and Sydney use a Polaroid instant camera to take a photograph that they planned to place over a security camera lens to fool the guards, but the filmmakers made a critical error with how Polaroid pictures actually work that creates a glaring continuity mistake. The scene shows them taking the picture with the camera held in the normal upright position, which means the characteristic white border that appears on all Polaroid photos would be at the bottom of the image, indicating that the picture is oriented correctly. However, when the heroes attach their Polaroid photograph to the security camera housing, the movie shows the white border positioned at the top of the picture instead of at the bottom where it should be based on how they took the photo. This means that the picture is actually mounted upside down on the camera, which would cause the image to appear inverted when viewed through the security monitor system that the guards are supposedly watching. The fundamental problem with this mistake is that Polaroid cameras always ejected photos with the white border at the bottom when held normally, and this border would stay in that position as the image developed. If someone wanted to mount the photo right side up, the white border would remain at the bottom, but if they flipped it upside down, the border would move to the top and the entire image would be inverted. What makes this error particularly noticeable is that the security guards who are monitoring the cameras would immediately see that something was wrong, since the mounted photograph would show an upside-down image of whatever the heroes photographed to create their decoy. This Polaroid mistake undermines the entire logic of their infiltration plan and creates a plot hole that eagle-eyed viewers have been pointing out for decades, making it one of the most obvious technical errors in the entire film. Fact 13. The opening fight features Jones shooting someone in the buttocks. The very first action sequence in Black Belt Jones ends with Jim Kelly literally shooting a bullet into an attacker's rear end, establishing the film's blend of martial arts action and absurd comedy right from the opening moments. This pre-credits sequence takes place in a parking lot where Black Belt Jones demonstrates his fighting skills against multiple opponents while funky music plays in the background, but the scene takes an unexpected turn when one of the attackers tries to escape by running away from the fight. Rather than letting the fleeing attacker get away or chasing him down for more hand-to-hand combat, Jones calmly draws his pistol and takes careful aim at the retreating figure. The camera follows the bullet's path as it strikes the running man directly in his buttocks, causing him to leap into the air and grab his injured posterior while howling in pain and surprise. This moment occurs during what is supposed to be Jones's introduction as a serious martial arts hero, making the buttocks shooting both shocking and hilariously inappropriate. The scene plays out with complete seriousness, despite its ridiculous nature, with Jones holstering his weapon and walking away as if shooting someone in the rear end is a perfectly normal way to conclude a martial arts demonstration. The funky soundtrack continues playing throughout this sequence, treating the buttocks shooting as just another cool move in Jones's arsenal of combat techniques, rather than acknowledging how absurd the moment actually is. This opening sequence perfectly captures the tone that Black Belt Jones would maintain throughout its entire runtime, where serious martial arts action could suddenly shift into slapstick comedy without warning. The buttocks shooting became one of the most memorable moments in the entire film, showing audiences immediately that they were in for a very different kind of action movie experience. Fact 14. Bob Wall choreographed his own beatdown. Bob Wall, who served as the fight coordinator for Black Belt Jones and had previously worked on Enter the Dragon with Bruce Lee and Jim Kelly, also appeared on screen as one of Don Stefano's mob henchmen who gets thoroughly defeated by the martial arts moves that he himself had designed and choreographed. This unique situation meant that Wall was essentially creating elaborate fight sequences where he would be on the receiving end of the punishment, designing his own character's defeat in precise detail. Wall was already well known in martial arts cinema circles for his work as both a fight coordinator and an actor, having played the villain O'Hara in Enter the Dragon, where he famously fought against Bruce Lee in one of that film's most memorable scenes. His expertise in both choreographing and performing martial arts made him an invaluable asset to the Black Belt Jones production, where he could design realistic and exciting fight sequences while also understanding exactly how to execute them safely on camera. In Black Belt Jones, Wall appears as one of the numerous bad guys who face off against Jim Kelly's character during various action sequences throughout the film. The irony of his situation becomes apparent when viewers realize that Wall had to carefully plan out every punch, kick, and throw that would be used against his own character, essentially mapping out his own defeat in meticulous detail during the pre-production planning stages. This behind-the-scenes arrangement created an unusual dynamic where Wall would spend his days teaching Jim Kelly and the other actors exactly how to beat up his character most effectively, then put on his costume and get beaten up according to his own precise instructions. The result was fight scenes where Wall's mob henchman character was defeated by martial arts techniques that Wall himself had specifically chosen and choreographed to showcase Jim Kelly's fighting abilities. Fact 15. The movie spawned a Princess Cruise cocktail. In 2015, Princess Cruises created a signature cocktail called the Isaac in honor of Ted Lange's beloved bartender character from The Love Boat, creating an unexpected connection between Black Belt Jones and modern cruise ship dining that spans over 40 years of entertainment history. This cocktail tribute demonstrates how Lange's early appearance in the 1974 martial arts film eventually led to a legacy that reaches all the way to contemporary cruise ship menus. The drink was introduced as part of Princess Cruises' celebration of their connection to The Love Boat television series, which had featured princess ships as the primary setting throughout its 10-year run, from 1977 to 1987. The cruise line recognized that Isaac Washington had become an iconic figure in television history, representing the friendly, professional bartender who could mix the perfect drink while providing sage advice to passengers dealing with romantic complications. To prepare for his role as Isaac, Ted Lange had actually attended bartending school to master the technical skills needed to convincingly portray a professional mixologist on television. This dedication to authenticity helped make his character more believable and contributed to the lasting popularity of Isaac Washington among fans of the series. Princess Cruises acknowledged this attention to detail by ensuring that the Isaac cocktail met high standards worthy of the character's reputation. The cocktail is now served on every Princess cruise ship as a permanent part of their beverage menu, making it a living tribute to both Lange's performance and the cultural impact of the Love Boat series. This means that passengers today can order the Isaac while sailing on the same cruise line that provided the ships used in the original television show, creating a direct link between Lange's early career in Black Belt Jones and his enduring influence on modern cruise ship culture. Behind the afros and karate chops of this 1974 blaxploitation classic lies a treasure trove of bizarre production secrets. From a deaf director who couldn't hear his own dialogue to Jim Kelly accidentally punching actors so hard, he needed a bodyguard threat to stop him. Fact 1. The director was deaf but nobody knew. Robert Klaus, the director behind Black Belt Jones, was completely deaf, yet this crucial detail remained largely unknown to audiences and even many of his collaborators throughout his career. What makes this fact particularly remarkable is that Klaus managed to create one of the most quotable and dialogue-heavy action films of the 1970s, despite being unable to hear a single word spoken on set. During the production of Black Belt Jones in 1974, Klaus relied entirely on his assistant directors to monitor the dialogue delivery and confirm that actors had delivered their lines effectively. This unusual working arrangement had actually been Klaus's standard practice across all his film projects, including his previous blockbuster, Enter the Dragon with Bruce Lee. His assistant directors would watch the actors carefully during each take, and then signal to Klaus whether the dialogue sounded natural and had been delivered with the proper emotion and timing. The irony becomes even more striking when you consider that Black Belt Jones became famous for its memorable one-liners and quotable dialogue. Lines like, "Batman, motherfucker!" and Pinky's rhyming speeches about money became cult classics among fans of blaxploitation cinema. The film's script was packed with colorful street language, witty comebacks, and dramatic declarations that required precise timing and delivery to work effectively. Despite widespread rumors suggesting otherwise, Klaus was indeed deaf from birth, not just hard of hearing. His ability to direct actors through purely visual cues and body language while delegating the audio aspects to trusted assistants demonstrated a remarkable adaptation to his disability. This behind-the-scenes reality makes his success in creating such a dialogue-driven, character-focused action film all the more impressive, proving that great filmmaking transcends any single sense. Fact 2. Jim Kelly got death threats from his own stuntman. Jim Kelly was actually hitting his fellow actors during fight scenes on the set of Black Belt Jones, forcing the fight coordinator to bring in a heavyweight enforcer to deliver a very real threat. This dangerous situation developed because Kelly, despite being a legitimate martial arts champion, was struggling to adapt from real fighting to movie fighting, where punches and kicks are supposed to stop just short of making contact. Bob Wall, who served as the fight coordinator for Black Belt Jones, and had previously worked with Kelly on Enter the Dragon, noticed that Kelly was allowing his kicks and blows to connect with other actors instead of pulling them at the last second. This unprofessional behavior was not only risking genuine injuries to the cast and stunt performers, but it was also causing delays in production as actors recovered from being accidentally struck during takes. The situation reached a breaking point when Wall realized that standard directions and reminders were not solving the problem. Kelly continued to make full contact with his fighting partners, either forgetting to pull his punches or simply reverting to his championship fighting instincts during the heat of filming. Wall knew he needed to take drastic action to protect the other performers and keep the production on schedule. Wall's solution was to pair Kelly in a scene with Jim Bottoms, a black belt heavyweight who was significantly larger and more intimidating than the other actors Kelly had been hitting. Before filming their scene together, Bottoms delivered a direct and unmistakable warning to Kelly, telling him that he would tear off his head if Kelly forgot to pull his punches during their fight sequence. This threat carried serious weight because Bottoms had both the size and the martial arts skills to back up his words, making it clear that any actual contact would result in immediate and painful retaliation for Kelly. Fact 3. Future Love Boat. Bartender played a Black Panther. Ted Lang appeared in Black Belt Jones as a militant activist in 1974. 3 full years before he would become a household name as Isaac Washington, the cheerful finger-pointing bartender on the Love Boat. This early role showcased a completely different side of Lange's acting range as he portrayed a serious political activist who confronted the villain Pinky about his questionable business practices in the community. In Black Belt Jones, Lange's character was part of a group of college militants who were unhappy with Pinky's drug dealing and other criminal activities that were harming their neighborhood. The role required Lange to deliver intense, politically charged dialogue that was worlds apart from the lighthearted cocktail-mixing banter he would later become famous for on the cruise ship comedy series. His appearance in the film was uncredited, making it a hidden gem for fans who later discovered this early performance. What makes this casting particularly fascinating is the dramatic contrast between these two iconic characters from different eras of television and film. While Isaac Washington was known for his jovial personality, colorful bartending skills, and trademark double-pointing gesture that became synonymous with The Love Boat's opening credits, Lange's character in Black Belt Jones was deadly serious about social justice issues and confronting criminal elements in his community. Lange had actually been building his acting career through various stage productions and small film roles during the early 1970s, including his Broadway debut in the musical Hair. His appearance in Black Belt Jones came at a time when he was taking on diverse roles to establish himself as a versatile actor. The film served as one of his earliest screen appearances, helping to pave the way for his later success on That's My Mama, before ultimately landing the role that would define his career on The Love Boat in 1977. Fact 4. The famous dish shooting scene was completely improvised. The iconic moment where Sydney shoots a stack of dirty dishes with her gun and declares, "They're done!" was not written in the original script and became one of the most memorable scenes in Black Belt Jones through Gloria Hendry's quick thinking and improvisation. This scene occurs during a tense moment when Black Belt Jones is preparing to leave on a dangerous mission to rescue their kidnapped friend Quincy from Pinky's gang. The setup for this famous moment happens when Jones discovers that Quincy has been captured and immediately starts gathering weapons from his briefcase to go after the kidnappers. Acting on protective instincts, Jones turns to Sydney and tells her to stay behind while he handles the dangerous situation, dismissively suggesting that she should do those dishes or something while he takes care of the serious business of rescuing their friend. Rather than following the scripted response that would have shown Sydney accepting this traditional gender role assignment, Hendry decided to demonstrate her character's fierce independence in a much more dramatic way. She grabbed a handgun and fired 6 shots directly at the rack of dirty dishes sitting nearby, completely destroying them in a shower of ceramic fragments and soapy water that scattered across the kitchen. After the gunshots stopped echoing and the last pieces of broken dishes settled on the floor, Hendry delivered the perfect one-liner with, "They're done." The timing and delivery of this response perfectly captured Sydney's refusal to be relegated to domestic duties when there was real action happening. This improvised moment not only provided comic relief during a tense scene, but it also established Sydney as an equal partner who would not be left behind or treated as just another woman who should stick to household chores while the men handled the fighting and rescue operations. Fact 5. The Omega Man Kid became a karate student. Eric Laneuville, who played the young survivor Richie in Charlton Heston's post-apocalyptic film The Omega Man in 1971, appears in Black Belt Jones as Quincy, one of the karate students at Pop Bird's dojo who becomes a crucial plot point when he gets kidnapped by the mob. This casting connection links 2 very different science fiction and action genres from the early 1970s, showcasing Laneuville's versatility as a young actor transitioning between dramatically different film worlds. In The Omega Man, Laneuville portrayed Richie, one of the few uninfected survivors in a world devastated by biological warfare, where he had to help Charlton Heston's character fight against mutant creatures called the Family. His character was part of a small group of immune survivors trying to find a cure for the plague that had wiped out most of humanity. The role required him to convey the weight and trauma of being one of the last normal humans on Earth. Just 3 years later in Black Belt Jones, Laneuville took on the completely different role of Quincy, a cheerful and energetic martial arts student who trains at the community dojo with his friends. His character serves as the emotional catalyst for the film's climax, when Pinky's gang kidnaps him and uses him as leverage to force Pop Bird's students to surrender the karate school. Quincy's kidnapping becomes the event that finally pushes Black Belt Jones and Sydney into their final confrontation with the criminal organization. Laneuville's performance in Black Belt Jones helped establish him as a reliable young actor who could handle both dramatic and action roles. This early work would eventually lead to his most famous role as Luther Hawkins on the medical drama Street, Elsewhere, and later to a successful career as a television director, helming episodes of major series like Lost, NYPD Blue, and Quantum Leap.